Welcome back. This is Course 8 on Developing Relationships. I'm Professor Tony Townsend, and this is week 4, where we're looking at parent involvement for student success. What I'd like to look at today in Lecture 2 is the parent as the child's first teacher. What we need to recognise is that the parent is involved in preparing a child for school on the day they come home from hospital. Fortunately, the best things that parents can do for their children are also those that are most natural and are simple. That is looking after the child, making sure they're healthy, making sure they eat well, and so on. Do parents make a difference? Well, we need to recognise that 85% of the language that we use as adults is there before we even start school. 50% of it is there by the time we're 3 years old. So in fact, parents are the first teacher in a very large extent. There are some places around the world at the moment, however, where people don't get to go to school at all. And in many cases, in fact most cases, these are girls. And what we could argue is that a lot of young women are not able to go to school because they are so important to the community. In this case, the parents and the community are the teachers, are the only teachers that these students will have. The curriculum in this case is life. Learning is by watching what other people do, by copying what your parents do, by listening to your elders, by having an understanding of what the history is of your community, by looking at your own culture and beliefs. So what we could argue is, in this instance, education is a shared responsibility of the whole community. It was everybody that needed to be involved. So what is it that parents can do to support their children? Perhaps the most important thing that they can do in terms of helping their child to be successful at school is to do what we would normally expect them to do, to make sure that children eat well, to make sure that they sleep well, to make sure that they're healthy, that they have plenty of play, and that they know that they're loved and supported at home. These things would enable young people to understand that they're getting prepared and ready for school. However, there are more specific things that parents could do that would enable them to become good learners at a later stage. There are 4 skill areas that we need to think about. The first one is developing their language and literacy skills. The second is their thinking skills. And then we have self-control and self-confidence. Each of these are important in order to enable young people to be able to fit into the routine and the processes of school. Children who don't have these sometimes take up to 6 months or even longer of the first school year just to become prepared for school, to gain that self-control, to start using their thinking skills, and to become confident about what the routines are. So if the parent is the first educator of the child, how can parents help their education? Well, there's lots of things that parents can do, and I just want to give you some examples of activities that parents might be involved in order to help their children get ready for school. We could suggest that parents talking to their children is a really critical thing. Spend time listening to their children. Spend time doing things with their children, perhaps over the dinner table in the evenings. There are lots of things that parents can do to help their child learn to enjoy reading at a later time. First, they can read to their child from a very early age and help their child learn to read or listen to their child read. It's also important for parents to read themselves, to let their child see them reading. Rather than just watching television, reading a book or reading a newspaper is an important understanding for the child to have. This is something my parent is doing, and it's something that I want to do as well. You may be able to take your child to a local library if there is one, and you might be able to check out a book. It might be a picture book, or it might be a story book that the child can read. If you take the books home, listen to your child read, help your child read, and provide them with magazines and other things that they can read. There are various things that parents can do to help their children feel good about themselves and good about learning. Let their child know that he or she is a valuable, positive person. Help them out. Have high expectations for what they should be able to do. I think you can do this. I think you could do a little bit better. If you try hard, you'll get better at this. And it's also important for parents to be a good role model in terms of making sure that you start a job and finish a job. Being able to finish something before you start going and relaxing or doing something else. Parents can turn something that they do every day into a learning activity. So the parent and the child can cook together. They can do the laundry. And there might be things that you can do while the laundry is being done. You might count the number of shirts. You might be able to measure out the soap that you need, and so on. You can go shopping, where the child can write their own shopping list, find out how much things cost, find out how much money is needed to pay for things, and so on. So there's lots of daily activities that can be used by the parent to help their child. Parents need to help develop learning routines, and this is to make sure that we have regular times to do things. If we read before bed every night, if we make sure that we have a regular bedtime so that we go to bed at the same time, if we make sure that the child is expected to do some jobs and that these jobs are appropriate for a child their age, and so on. Doing things on a regular basis helps the child to understand that in school we do things on a regular basis too. There are certain things to be done at certain times. Now, of course, one of the problems that we have in trying to encourage parents to be involved is that they have a lack of confidence in dealing with schools and dealing with teachers. In many cases, this is often a legacy of their own days in school, where they were not successful, they were not happy, they didn't do well, they didn't enjoy their life in school, they didn't like their teachers, and so on. If parents have this feeling about their own school, they will automatically assume that their child's school is going to be just as unhappy. In order to overcome that, schools need to then do something to reach out to parents. They need to help their child become ready for school, and it may be possible for the school to actually reach out to the parent before the child comes to school. And there are lots of different examples of things that schools can do prior to a child actually attending that might support the parent in helping their child to get ready. One example that was given is an activity bag. If you have an activity bag with things for parents to do with their children, with storybooks, with picture books and so on, where people can tell stories to each other and where some of the skills that are required for reading are done by parents before the child even comes to school. We can provide parents with information about how important it is to be healthy, to have good food, to have plenty of sleep and so on. In other words, schools can provide parents with information about how to be a better parent. And this can be done in a relaxed way. It can be something that is offered to parents. Opportunities are given to parents to select what it is that they would like to know, and then teachers and the school can encourage parents to be more actively involved in their child's learning. One last thing for this particular lecture. Here's a poem, and nobody knows who wrote it. It's called Parents and Teachers. And as you read through this particular poem, you'll see how important both parents and teachers are to the education of a young person. Parents can offer different things to teachers, but they are important nevertheless. And if you look at the last verse, and each agreed she would have failed if she had worked alone. For behind the parent stood the school, and behind the teacher stood the home. It's when we bring together teachers and parents in a common understanding that we're both working towards improving the lives of young people that we have a successful parent-teacher partnership. In our next session, I want to look at the work of Joyce Epstein and her colleagues and look at different ways in which parents might be involved in their child's education. Until then, thank you.